my whole body ached. The air was filled with the pungent smell of alcohol. I struggled to open my eyes.
Emily! You're awake!
Sophie rushed to my side, her face full of joy.
Call the nurse.
I looked at the grim face behind Sophie and suddenly remembered how I ended up like this. Sophie was my good friend. Standing behind her was her boyfriend, Ethan. It was him. He pushed me down the stairs, and that's how I ended up in the hospital. All because I discovered his secret. He had been pretending to be a wealthy heir in Sophie's eyes, but in reality, he was deeply in debt. So he tried to silence me, but luckily, I survived.
How are you feeling? Is there anywhere else that hurts?
I snapped back to reality. It was Ethan who spoke. His tone was concerned, but his eyes were full of threats. I swallowed and shook my head.
Really, such a grown-up, falling down the stairs, how careless.
Where's Jack?
He said he went to get some food.
Sophie said, adjusting my bed. Ethan sat leisurely on the side, showing no signs of guilt.
Sophie,
Yes?
Emily has no water to drink. The water on the table is cold. Go get some hot water from the water room.
I suddenly felt a chill. Jack went to get food and might not be back anytime soon. This move was clearly to get Sophie out of the room.
No need, I don't.
I was about to refuse when I saw Sophie stand up.
I'll get some water, be right back.
Sophie left quickly, closing the door behind her, leaving just Ethan and me in the room. The atmosphere was suffocating, and I shivered, not daring to breathe. What did he want to do? Threaten me? Or continue to silence me?
You're quite lucky.
Ethan said slowly, standing up from the chair, a terrifying smile on his face, one that didn't seem human. A chill ran down my spine, but with my injuries, I couldn't move.
What do you want? I know you don't want Sophie to know. Don't worry. I definitely won't.
So obedient?
Ethan chuckled lowly, then suddenly his expression changed. He lunged at me, his hands gripping my neck tightly, gritting his teeth.
Too bad! I don't believe you! I only trust the silence of the dead.
Oh!
I widened my eyes in disbelief, ignoring the four in my hand, desperately trying to pry his hands off my neck. But he was a strong man, using all his strength to strangle me. I had no chance to fight back.
Cough, cough.
Was I really going to perish at his hands today? Just then, I heard Sophie's voice outside the door.
Emily! Emily, look what I found!
Followed by the sound of footsteps approaching. But Ethan's grip didn't loosen, his face twisted as he looked at me.
Cough, cough.
I hoped Sophie would hurry, but I knew I couldn't hold on much longer. Just when I had lost all hope, Ethan suddenly let go of his hand and sat back in his original position.
Cough, cough.
I clutched my neck, desperately gasping for air.
Emily! Look what I found!
The door burst open.
Cough, cough.
I couldn't stop coughing, my neck aching from the pressure.
Oh my, what happened? Are you okay? Why are you coughing so much? Your face is all red.
Quick, give her some water to soothe it.
Oh, right.
Sophie quickly brought the water in her hand to my mouth.
Drink some water.
I was about to refuse when I saw Ethan's threatening gaze fixed on me.
Thanks.
I shivered and took a sip of water from Sophie's hand. With Ethan watching me, I didn't dare say a word or make any unnecessary movements. He was a madman.
Why isn't Jack back yet? What kind of food is he buying that takes so long?
Facing Ethan alone made me feel vulnerable. If Jack were here, I wouldn't be so scared.
Who knows? I told you, you should find a better boyfriend. You're always thinking about him, but with your qualities, you could find someone wealthier.
Look at him. If he had any money, he wouldn't be without a car and need Alex to drive you around. He can't even rush to his girlfriend's side when she's in trouble. What's he good for? Thank goodness for Ethan, who arrived at the scene quickly.
Well, I should really thank him for that.
And that Jack. Even buying food takes forever.
Emily, don't worry. If you break up with him, I'll introduce you to someone better. You just...
All right, Sophie, don't say that.
You're always defending him.
Sophie pouted in dissatisfaction, then her eyes lit up with excitement.
Oh, right. Let me show you the gifts Alex and I brought you.
This one is from me, and this one is from Alex. And there are some snacks, all for you. Take whichever you want.
After the introductions, she stood up.
All right, I have some things to do, so I need to go. If you need anything, call me, okay?
Okay.
I nodded, secretly relieved that she was finally leaving. With Sophie gone, Ethan would also leave. Before leaving, Ethan gave me a warning look. The door closed, and the room fell silent. I breathed a sigh of relief. Suddenly, I heard a click, a clear sound. I followed the sound and saw that it came from the teddy bear Ethan had given me. I took a deep breath, picked up the teddy bear, and unwrapped it. I examined the teddy bear thoroughly and finally found a device resembling a listening device in its armpit. In an instant, my hair stood on end. He really wasn't planning to let me go.
Emily, you're awake?
Jack had returned and was pleasantly surprised to see me awake.
I just went to get some food. There were so many people today, so it took a bit longer. Are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere?
Jack walked over to me quickly.
Where are Sophie and the others? Have they left?
They've all gone.
What happened to your hand?
Jack's gaze fell on the back of my hand, and he immediately became tense, pressing the call button on my bedside as he spoke. It was only then that I noticed my hand was bleeding slightly, probably from the struggle earlier. The nurse was treating my wound while Jack stood by, nervously watching her every move. But my mind was filled with thoughts about Ethan's issues. Was he monitoring me to prevent me from revealing his secrets? Or did he have some other motive?
How did this happen?
After the nurse left, Jack sat beside me, looking serious.
You need to be more careful.
I shook my head, quickly took out my phone, opened the chat with Jack, and started typing a message to him. Jack's voice trailed off as he seemed to realize something. He immediately took out his phone and began reading my messages. I told Jack everything about Ethan pushing me and almost choking me to death.
Damn it.
Jack stood up excitedly, ready to storm out and confront Ethan. I quickly stopped him, pointed to the teddy bear, and told him there was a listening device inside.
Sophie is my good friend. I still want to maintain our relationship, but Sophie is so infatuated with Ethan right now. Without evidence, she wouldn't believe me, and our friendship might fall apart. But Ethan is dangerous. If he stays around Sophie, she could be in danger too. I need to make Sophie see his true colors, and I need to protect my own life.
Call the police.
No evidence.
I shared my thoughts with Jack. Jack still looked upset, but he chose to cooperate with me.
In that case, let's lure him here.
We'll catch him red-handed.
As soon as I sent this message, Jack cleared his throat and said loudly,
Emily, I have something to do tonight, so I need to go home. Be careful in the hospital.
I know.
I played along. After that, we didn't mention it again and went about our business as if everything was normal. Sure enough, 2 hours later, I received a call from Sophie.
Hey, Emily, I'll come over and keep you company tonight.
Really? That's great. Jack is going home tonight, and I was going to be alone.
I pretended to be surprised and then gave Jack a knowing look. The bait was taken. Ah, what a coincidence. Sophie sounded a bit excited. All right, wait for me. I'll pack up and come over.
Okay.
The information was so precise, it seemed like Ethan had encouraged Sophie to come and keep me company, looking for an opportunity to silence me.
Sophie is coming tonight?
Yes, she said she would come and keep me company tonight.
Great. I was worried about you being here alone with no one to take care of you. In that case, I can go home with peace of mind. You and Sophie have fun.
The sky had completely darkened. Sophie arrived quickly. Not long after Jack left, she came, and sure enough, Ethan followed behind her. Ethan carried some snacks and placed them on the table. I observed Ethan casually, and sure enough, he seemed restless, looking around the room.
Alex, you should go back. I'm staying here with Emily tonight. You can come pick me up tomorrow morning.
No need. I don't feel comfortable with just you two girls here. I booked a room at the hotel next door. I'll sleep there tonight. If you need anything, just message me. Being close, I can take care of things.
What is there to be uncomfortable about in a hospital? Two grown people. It's him being here that makes me uncomfortable. I kept my head down and didn't respond.
Alex, you're so considerate. All right then. Moi.
After speaking, Ethan didn't intend to stay any longer and left directly. The ward was left with just Sophie and me. Originally, my ward had 2 beds, but the other bed was unoccupied, so Sophie temporarily slept on it tonight.
See, Alex is so considerate. If it were your Jack, he wouldn't do it. The cost of a night at a hotel would make him feel distressed.
Sometimes, I really admire her. No matter when, she can always shift the topic to this, obsessed with finding me a new partner. She developed this condition after getting together with Ethan.
I'm serious. Don't always think I'm joking. We're not in a bad situation. Jack is penniless. I really don't know what you see in him. We can't just hang ourselves on one tree, right?
After you break up with him. Sophie paused, then gave me a mischievous smile.
I'll introduce you to a few people. Alex has some great friends, handsome and rich.
No, thank you.
I could guess what kind of people Ethan's friends were. Besides, I think Jack is pretty good. Money can be earned, and he's much more reliable than someone like Ethan, who is a negative second generation.
Stop. I don't want to break up. Jack and I have a good relationship. Don't talk about him like that.
I knew you would say that.
Just then, I heard Sophie's voice outside the door.
Emily! Emily, look what I found!
Footsteps approached. Ethan's grip didn't loosen, his face twisted as he looked at me.
Cough, cough.
I hoped Sophie would hurry, but I knew I couldn't hold on much longer. How vicious! Ethan's steps suddenly halted, and at that moment, I felt weightless as he lifted me up. My heart pounded. Where was Jack? If he didn't come soon, I would really be thrown down. Don't move!
Emily.
Ethan froze in place. The surrounding lights instantly came on, and while Ethan was still in shock, I pushed him with all my strength, causing myself to fall.
Emily!
Jack quickly ran over to me and held me protectively in his arms.
You tricked me?
Tricked your mother.
Jack suddenly stood up, grabbed Ethan by the collar, and punched him repeatedly in the face.
Pull them apart!
I hurriedly went to pull Jack away. We couldn't let this get out of hand. It was better to let the police handle it. If things got worse, we might end up in trouble ourselves.
Jack, it's enough. It's over, stop hitting him.
I tried to hold Jack back, but I couldn't. I could feel the intense hatred he had for Ethan through his tensed muscles. In that moment, I knew he was the one.
Jack, stop. We can't end up in the station.
The officer stepped in and finally separated the two. Ethan was left defenseless, his face covered in blood. My heart sank. This was bad.
You really are something. Not only are you deep in debt, but you also pick on young girls. What a beast!
Aw!
At that moment, a scream rang out nearby, followed by hurried footsteps.
Alex, what's wrong? Alex!
Sophie screamed as she rushed over. The officer immediately stepped forward to separate Sophie and Ethan.
Everyone, let's go.
Ethan stood there like a puppet, not moving an inch. Even when Sophie ran over, he didn't look at her, not even a glance, just staring at me. His gaze sent chills down my spine.
What happened? What on earth happened?
Sorry, officer. My girlfriend is a patient. I'll go with you, but she can't leave the hospital.
Jack,
I was about to say I was fine and could go too, but Jack silently shook his head at me. I immediately closed my mouth. There was no point in me going, it would only make him worry more. I nodded.
All right. Then you come with us. Young lady, you rest well tonight. We might need to take your statement tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you.
Jack followed the officer, and Ethan was escorted away by 2 officers.
Emily, what on earth happened?
I finally noticed the patients in the surrounding rooms peeking out, curious.
Let's talk about this back in the room.
I patted Sophie's head to comfort her. She looked very upset, but she had to face the truth.
Why? Why did Jack hit Alex, and why are you here? And the officer? The officer is here too.
As I turned to comfort her, Sophie suddenly screamed.
Aw! Emily, what happened to your hand? It's bleeding!
Sophie grabbed my arm, leading me to the hospital room. She pushed me onto the bed and pressed the call button.
Thank you.
The nurse quickly entered the room.
Nurse, her hand is bleeding.
How did this happen again? Didn't I tell you before not to remove the needle yourself? Now both hands are swollen. Where do you expect to get the 4 now?
The nurse scolded harshly and continued.
If you're so capable, why don't you become a doctor?
I'm sorry, I'll be more careful next time.
Seeing the nurse about to change the 4 needle, I quickly stopped her.
This bottle of medicine might be unusable. Someone added something to it just now. Could you replace it with a new one?
What?
There might be a sedative or something in it. Could you please replace it with a new one? Someone tampered with it just now.
This is the first time I've encountered a patient like you. Always secretly removing the needle and now adding medicine yourself. If something goes wrong, how are we supposed to be responsible?
The nurse grumbled as she replaced the medicine.
If you think you can treat yourself, then don't come to the hospital. Why don't you get a medical license? If this happens again, our hospital will just kick you out. We can't serve someone like you.
I'm sorry, it won't happen again.
Misunderstandings were fine, explaining would be too troublesome. Sophie sat silently beside me, staring blankly at the nurse changing my 4 bottle. The nurse replaced the 4 bottle and had to change the needle. Both the backs of my hands were swollen, so the 4 had to be administered through a vein in my wrist. Before leaving, the nurse grumbled and warned me again, turning back every few steps as if I would cause trouble the moment she left.
Emily, you mentioned adding a sedative. Was it Ethan?
Yes.
I didn't hide anything and nodded directly. Even if it made Sophie sad, she needed to face reality and understand the true nature of the rich second generation she had always liked.
Why?
Sophie suddenly looked up, her eyes already red and filled with tears, looking pitiful.
Why did he drug you?
Sophie's lips were completely colorless, pale and frightening, and her voice trembled continuously.
Why did Jack hit him, and why did the officer come?
Sophie suddenly thought of something and widened her eyes.
Is it a misunderstanding between you two? It's okay, just talk it out.
Sophie kept comforting herself.
No misunderstanding.
Sophie's self-muttering stopped abruptly. She looked at me pleadingly, as if begging me not to reveal the truth in front of her.
Ethan wanted to harm me. I fell down the stairs because Ethan pushed me down himself.
Recalling that scene made me nauseous.
Luckily, I survived. I called Jack, but he was busy and didn't answer, so I called you.
And you asked Ethan to come to my rescue. Do you know why he reached me in less than 5 minutes? Because he was nearby.
That day, if you hadn't been there, I might not have made it to the hospital.
When Ethan returned that day, I was cold all over, thinking I was done for, but Sophie arrived just in time, so Ethan didn't get a chance to act.
How could this be?
Sophie looked at me in disbelief, probably thinking I made it all up. But it was the truth.
Yesterday, Ethan asked you to get hot water for me to deliberately send you away. As soon as you left, he came over to strangle me. That's why you saw me coughing uncontrollably when you returned. If you had been a minute later, I might have already. And tonight. Tonight wasn't an accident, Jack and I set a trap.
Under Sophie's shocked gaze, I revealed everything.
Do you remember that?
I shifted my gaze to the teddy bear on the table and nodded towards it, signaling her to bring it over.
I remember. Alex gave it to you as a gift, hoping you would recover soon.
Recover soon?
I raised an eyebrow at Sophie and took out the listening device hidden in the teddy bear's armpit, placing it in front of her.
A listening device.
Yes. I found it after you all left, so I played along. I stayed alone in the ward while Jack went home, giving Ethan the opportunity to act. Sure enough, he used the excuse of keeping you company to come after me.
Jack had already arranged for the officers to lie in wait, ready for him to act.
Emily, tone, serious. He drugged me tonight, intending to throw me out of the window while I was unconscious, making it look like I had taken my own life.
Sophie, tone, whispering yes. He did ask me to stay with you tonight.
Emily, tone, sad, right?
Sophie, tone, puzzled. So why? Why would he want to harm you? Everything seemed fine before. What caused the sudden conflict between you two?
Emily, tone, serious, conflict? The conflict might be because I accidentally discovered his secret.
Emily recalled the event that started it all.
Emily, tone, serious. That day, I wanted to go to the supermarket to buy something, and I happened to see him with a few guys at the corner. Those guys looked like troublemakers. At first, I thought Ethan was being bullied and was about to step in, but then I overheard their conversation. Emily, tone, serious. It turned out Ethan owed them money, and they were there to collect.
Sophie, tone, disbelief impossible. How could Ethan owe anyone money? He's so.
Emily, tone, interrupting Rich? I found it hard to believe too, but I still stepped in. However, Ethan didn't seem grateful. I was a bit upset but didn't think much of it. I planned to tell you about it later to expose his true colors, so I continued shopping.
Emily shivered at the memory.
Emily, tone, serious, but I never expected him to follow me. When I was in a deserted area of the supermarket, he pushed me down the stairs. I lost consciousness immediately. If it weren't for my luck, I wouldn't have survived. I called you as soon as I woke up.
Sophie remained silent, her head lowered.
Emily, tone, worried. Sophie? Sophie, don't be too upset. It's fortunate we discovered his true nature early and avoided further loss.
Sophie suddenly looked up and threw herself at Emily, clinging to her and crying uncontrollably.
Sophie, tone, crying wow. I'm sorry, Emily. I didn't know it would be like this. Why did he deceive me? Why did he do this to you? I'm so sorry, Emily.
Emily, tone, friendly. If I had known earlier, I would never have let him bully you like this.
Sophie sobbed on Emily's shoulder.
Emily, tone, friendly. So, you didn't know. When you insisted I break up with Jack and introduced me to Ethan's good friend, my heart sank, and I wanted nothing to do with it.
Sophie scratched her head sheepishly.
Sophie, tone, cheerful hee. So Jack turned out to be reliable. I misjudged him, but he's too poor, coming from a rural family. I was just worried you'd suffer in the future.
Emily, tone, friendly. I know, but I think he's pretty good.
Sophie, tone, reluctant. Fine. Since he protected you, I can temporarily forgive his poverty, but he has to treat you even better for me to fully forgive him.
Emily, tone, cheerful. All right, I'll keep pushing him.
After a while, Sophie cheered up and started bouncing around again.
Sophie, tone, cheerful. He better stay in prison and never come out for the rest of his life.
Otherwise, I'll give him a piece of my mind every time I see him. How dare he deceive me and bully our Emily?
All right, stop it. Let's sleep. The police might come to take our statements tomorrow.
Okay then.
I slept particularly well that night, but because I kept thinking about the statement, I woke up early. Sophie was sleeping soundly by my bedside. Creak. The door opened again. I looked towards the sound.
Jack? How did you get back so quickly?
Perhaps my voice was too loud, as Sophie rubbed her eyes and looked at me in confusion.
What's going on?
Jack is back.
I bought some steamed buns.
How did you get back so quickly? I haven't forgotten that you confronted Ethan. How could his family just let it go? Ethan was hurt pretty badly. Is he all right?
What could happen to him? He wouldn't dare make a fuss. His dad knew his son started the trouble, so he didn't hold me responsible.
And Ethan?
He'll probably be in trouble for a few years. I think I went too easy on him.
All right, it's good that everything's fine.
Yeah, are you okay? Are you still feeling uncomfortable?
Just then, there was a knock on the door. The door opened immediately after. It was my attending physician. Dr. Smith walked over and briefly examined my injuries.
You're recovering well. You can be discharged this afternoon.
Really?
Yes.
Jack immediately went to handle the discharge procedures. Sophie also helped me pack my things. Jack and I returned to our rented apartment. After helping me settle in, Sophie left.
I'm sorry
Why are you suddenly apologizing?
for not protecting you well. If I had,
Don't say that. You did protect me. You did very well. I'm really happy. I should be thanking you.
Jack looked at me, his lips moved as if he wanted to say something, but he sighed and turned to leave. After a while, he came back. I saw the red velvet box in his hand, and my heart started pounding.
Emily, will you marry me?
He walked to the bedside and knelt on one knee.
I will.
He smiled slightly, took the ring from the box, and placed it on my finger.
Is this ring real? I touched the texture, incredulous. I thought it was fake.
How could I give you a fake one? I asked my dad to sell a sheep to buy it.
I don't need these fancy things.
Sell a sheep. How did he come up with that? I wanted to take the ring off and have him return it.
Don't worry, it's just a few sheep. We have over 30,000 of them, it's enough.
Huh?
Later, when I told Sophie about this, she cried.
The joke's on me.